Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're wrestling with something pretty fundamental, I think, for a lot of leaders. How do we actually measure progress when, the stuff that really matters most?
Well, it isn't always in the numbers we typically count.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Our sources suggest that many organizations, maybe even yours, get trapped in what they call the tyranny of the immediate. Basically, chasing conversion stats, attendance charts.
Right. Measuring decisions, maybe, but not discipleship. Outcomes, sure, but not real transformation deep down.
Exactly. And the cost is, well, it's astronomical. We see leaders burning out, teams just losing heart, because all that faithful, quiet, day in, day out work, it often gets dismissed if it doesn't pop up on the quarterly report.
That's spot on. And look, the mission here isn't to ditch accountability or metrics altogether. Not at all. It's about fundamentally expanding how we define success.
It demands a pretty profound shift in mindset, really. Redefining success not by, say, how fast we grow, but how faithfully we plant. The goal is learning to track those relational milestones, celebrate the tiny steps forward, basically measure what often gets overlooked.
Measure what gets overlooked. I like that.
And to help us think about this shift, our sources point to this really powerful metaphor Jesus used, the weight of a mustard seed.
Ah, yes.
The mustard seed.
Yeah. And it's critical because it shows that real deep impact often starts, inconspicuously. It's tiny, almost negligible, right? But it grows into something substantial.
The largest of garden plants, as the parable goes.
Exactly. So the insight is that smallness isn't necessarily a failure of scale. Sometimes it's actually the key mode of operation for lasting change, whether that's spiritual or in a community. It requires patient attentiveness, investing in depth, which really clashes with the typical quarterly reporting cycle, doesn't it? It absolutely does. It's a huge hurdle psychologically because everything in modern organizational culture seems geared towards rewarding immediate results. And that pressure leads straight to this tyranny of the immediate we mentioned. So let's dig into the danger of that conversion-only scorecard. It treats mission work almost like a factory funnel, where success is only counted right at the very end.
Right. The baptism, the signed form, the moment someone raises their hand.
Yeah, and everything else leading up to that. It's seen as just necessary pipeline activity, maybe, but not really celebrated, not the win.
And this funnel thinking, it brings in some serious flaws. Theologically, for starters, it sort of collapses salvation or significant change into just one single moment, one transaction. And it completely ignores the long, slow arc of formation, what theologians call sanctification, that often messy process of becoming mature, faithful, which takes years, usually, not seconds.
And it also misreads the very method of change itself, doesn't it? You mentioned the incarnational method earlier. What exactly are you getting at there?
Yeah, the incarnational method. It's about prioritizing presence. Think about how Jesus operated. His ministry was so focused on relationship, wasn't it?
Eating with people, walking with them.
Exactly. Meeting people at tables, walking long distances, engaging deeply with individuals one-on-one or in small groups. It really favored profound presence over instant transactions or big flashy spectacles.
Presence over transactions. Okay.
And when our organizations only focus on that final transaction metric, we end up confusing real fruit, things like love, patience, endurance, which emerge over time with temporary proof, something quick we can point to right now.
That makes sense. But the psychological damage you mentioned is just as critical, isn't it? This constant chase for the number.
Oh, absolutely. It breeds serious performance anxiety in leaders. They feel this pressure, sometimes spoken, sometimes unspoken, to prioritize, spectacle over pastoral care.
Meaning big events to boost attendance rather than the hard, quiet work with individuals.
Precisely. Spending resources on things designed purely to get bodies in the door, rather than investing in that slow, often unseen work of formation. And it also, fundamentally, it commodifies people.
How so?
Well, when a person's whole journey, their spiritual path, gets reduced to a single data point, did they convert? Did they sign up?
Yeah.
They stop being seen as an image bearer of God with a complex lifelong story.
Yeah.
They just become a number.
A tick in a box.
Exactly. And maybe the most damaging part, pastorally speaking, is how it demoralizes faithful presence. That essential everyday work. Cooking meals for someone grieving, sitting consistently with the sick, listening deeply month after month. It gets dismissed if it doesn't immediately produce a number we can count.
So if that CEO-style scoreboard, the quick win approach, is causing burnout and demoralization, then the sources are arguing we need a whole new perspective.
A different lens
They
entirely.
need to trade that spreadsheet focus for about the patient eye of a gardener. That's the idea, right? The gardener's perspective.
That's the shift.
Yeah.
The gardener's perspective. Because a gardener isn't just fixated on the final harvest today. They're looking for the 1,000 small signs of life along the way.
Okay. Like what?
Like seeing the soil being carefully tilled, tracking those tiny rootlets spreading out unseen in the dark, celebrating that fragile little sprout when it first bends towards the light.
Mm-hmm.
The gardener's job is faithfulness to the process. They don't ultimately own the outcome, you know.
Fidelity to the process, not ownership of the outcome. I like that.
And this leads us to some core principles for what the sources call sacred measurement. It sounds a bit grand, maybe, but the idea is crucial.
Okay. What are these principles?
First, measure what actually matters. Things like spiritual maturity, trust, relational depth, faithful presence, not just what's easiest to count, like, website clicks or attendance figures.
Right. Easy isn't always important.
Exactly. Second, we need to balance our metrics. We need both leading and lagging indicators.
Okay, let's define those terms quickly for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Leading versus lagging indicators.
Good point. Think of it simply. Leading indicators show formation and progress. They're the early signs.
The small sprouts pushing through.
Perfect analogy, yes. New rhythms people adopt, maybe increased trust you can observe, deeper relationships forming. Those are leading indicators. Lagging indicators show the result over time. That's the visible fruit on the branch later on 6 months, a year down the line.
Like transformed lives or new leaders emerging.
Exactly. Multiplication. We absolutely need both, but often our systems push us to only prioritize the lagging indicators, especially the ones we can see immediately.
So if we're going to prioritize these leading indicators, these signs of life, we have to value qualitative data more, right? The stories, the observations.
We have to honor it, yes.
But hang on, if you're dealing with, say, a skeptical board or donors used to hard numbers, isn't calling someone's story primary data a tough sell? How do the sources justify putting a testimony on par with an attendance chart?
Well, they argue that complexity demands a complex metric. Simple as that. The human heart, spiritual growth, you just can't capture that richness with a tick box.
True.
So qualitative data, the narratives, the field notes from staff, the structured testimonies, they become primary because they capture the process of change. That's the actual mission, right? They give the why and how behind the numbers. They provide the essential context.
And here's the crucial link for everyone listening, I think. Connecting this shift to sustained motivation. You mentioned burnout earlier.
Yes, and psychological studies back this up consistently. When teams can recognize those small incremental wins, those little sprouts, it boosts perseverance. It deepens engagement. Encouragement isn't just fluffy stuff. It's actual fuel.
So recognizing progress, even small, relational, often unseen progress, that needs to be built into the system.
Absolutely. It needs to be recognized as real kingdom fruit, as real impact. That's what nurtures the conditions for genuine long-term transformation.
Which means we need practical ways to actually do this tracking. Which brings us, I think, to Section 3, practical tools for tracking the invisible.
Right. We need a richer language for impact. The aim here is to track what the sources call gardener's fruit. And they suggest thinking across 4 key categories.
Okay, what are they?
Relational wins think trust being built, deeper connections. Intellectual wins, maybe someone grappling with a new idea, asking deeper questions. Spiritual wins, someone adopting new personal practices, like prayer or reflection. And behavioral wins, a tangible change in habits or actions.
Relational, intellectual, spiritual, behavioral. Got it. That gives a vocabulary to spot things beyond just did they sign up.
Exactly. It helps us celebrate that small, often unseen work.
So the solution isn't to just stop counting things altogether.
No, not at all.
It's about counting better. The sources talk about implementing something like a mustard seed dashboard or a Kingdom Wins report, and they suggest a specific blend, 40% qualitative, 60% quantitative. Can you explain that ratio? Why 40-60?
Yeah, the ratio is deliberate. 40% needs to be those rich, qualitative notes, the structured stories, the field observations, because again, that captures the why and the how. It gives the texture.
Okay.
The other 60% should be simple but carefully chosen quantitative signals.
Yeah.
Standardized signals across 6 critical domains that really track faithful presence and depth, not just surface activity.
Okay, let's break down those 6 domains. What are we tracking specifically?
Sure. First is presence and access. This goes beyond just counting heads at an event. It tracks things like the average weekly hours of faithful, intentional presence per staff member or volunteer in the community, or context where you work.
So hours spent being there relationally.
Exactly. Second, relational depth. This is key.
Yeah.
It measures something like the ratio of repeat conversations to just one-off contacts. Are we building ongoing relationships or just making initial contact?
Yeah.
It tracks fidelity, investment.
Makes sense. What's third?
Third is spiritual formation rhythms. This tracks progress in maturity. For example, what percentage of small groups are reporting shared spiritual disciplines? Are people actually adopting practices that lead to growth?
Okay, fourth.
Fourth, trust and belonging. This uses thematic sentiment analysis, but not just a vague happiness survey. It involves structured, short interviews, maybe 10, 15 minutes, asking about feelings of safety, vulnerability, mutual commitment within the group or community.
So digging into the quality of the community fabric.
Precisely. Fifth is replication and multiplication. This measures long-term sustainability. How many new leaders or initiators are emerging from within the group? You could track a replication coefficient, say, new leaders developed per 100 invested participants. It's the math of organic growth.
Generating leadership from within. Okay. And the last one.
Sixth is visible fruit and resilience. This is more of a lagging indicator, but a crucial one. It tracks the number of documented testimonies that show lasting change verified over a significant period, like 3 months, 6 months, a year. It shows resilience, change that sticks even under pressure.
Got it. Presence, depth, rhythms, trust, replication, and fruit resilience. It's a much richer picture. And you mentioned that 40% qualitative data needs structure, narrative metrics.
Yes, absolutely crucial. This isn't just about writing down a nice anecdote when you feel like it. It requires using a consistent template for testimonies. The sources often recommend tracking the story arc. What was the context? What was the prior struggle? What was the intervention or relationship? What change occurred? And importantly, what are the ongoing needs?
Why is that structure so important? Just for consistency.
It's more than consistency. It captures the story over time. If you use that template, you can revisit the same person at 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. You're actually measuring that long arc of sanctification, of formation.
So it makes the narrative trackable, auditable even.
Exactly. And it helps demonstrate that the change wasn't just a fleeting emotional moment, but something resilient.
So for someone listening who's on the front lines doing the work, these metrics give them concrete things to watch for day to day, right? These leading indicators.
Absolutely. You start noticing different things, an increase in repeated visits or contacts with someone, the depth of questions changing in a small group, moving from just practical problems to deeper theological or existential questions.
Or seeing new initiatives bubble up from the grassroots.
Yes, like participants starting a community garden on their own or organizing a tutoring group. Those are powerful signals that something robust is taking root under the surface, beyond what you directly organized.
Which leads us to the role of leadership in all this, and accountability, and, frankly, hope. Section 4.
Right. Because this shift doesn't happen bottom-up only. Leaders have to actively cultivate this mustard seed culture.
How do they do that?
Well, they have to model patience publicly. They need to be seen celebrating the slow wins, the small steps. And crucially, they need to reward faithful presence, that consistent relational work, not just the big events that temporarily boost attendance numbers.
So change the incentive structure, essentially.
You have to institutionalize the value of that unseen work. Make it clear that this is what success looks like here.
Okay, but what about the practical reality of accountability? Especially to donors, boards, stakeholders who might still be very focused on those immediate numbers. You can't just tell them, trust the process, can you?
No, you definitely can't. And you shouldn't. The answer isn't no reporting. It's a mixed report. You still provide statistics for agreed-upon metrics, but you structure them thoughtfully. Maybe using tiers.
Tiers.
Yeah, like Tier 1 for immediate access metrics, attendance, contacts. Tier 2 for formation leading indicators, relational depth, shared rhythms. And Tier 3 for fruit-liking indicators, testimonies of lasting change, multiplication.
Okay, so you give them numbers but categorize differently.
Exactly. And this is critical, you have to enrich that data.
Yeah.
You must include, say, 3 to 5 compelling narrative case studies using that structured template we talked about. Show the longitudinal story.
Bring the numbers to life with stories.
And go one step further. Invite those funders or board members into storytelling sessions Or better yet, bring them on field visits. Let them witness the faithful presence firsthand.
Ah, shift them from being just auditors looking at a spreadsheet.
To becoming co-laborers who are invested in the long-term process because they've seen it, felt it, that builds real trust.
And if we manage to get these metrics right, celebrating the right things, does that help with the burnout issue we started with?
It's the ultimate counter, I think. When the system recognizes and values the actual work being done, the pressure changes. And this connects to institutionalizing rhythms of rest and reflection, too. The biblical counterweight to that tyranny of urgency is always perseverance, trusting that the harvest comes in due season, as Galatians puts it, not necessarily on our Q3 deadline.
Trusting the timing. Okay, let's wrap this up with some immediate steps. If someone's listening and thinking, okay, I want to move away from this tyranny of the immediate, what can they actually do?
Right, let's make it practical. We can suggest a simple 30, 60, 90-day plan.
Okay, 30 days.
Within 30 days, launch a basic weekly presence log. Just have staff and key volunteers track their intentional relational hours. Simple. And start a Story of the Week segment in your internal meetings. Just begin the practice of noticing and celebrating the micro wins.
Good start. 60 days.
By 60 days, try building a first draft of that mustard seed dashboard, incorporating those 6 domains we discussed. Doesn't have to be perfect. And train your team, even just a few people, to conduct those short 10, 15-minute structured narrative interviews. Start gathering that qualitative data systematically.
Okay. And 90 days.
By 90 days, this is the key step. Draft your first funder update or internal narrative report that uses this new model. Combine the quantitative signals, maybe across those tiers, with 3 solid structured case studies that show transformation over time. Put it on paper. Test it out.
30, 60, 90. Launch the log and stories, build the dashboard and interview skills, draft the new report. That feels actionable.
It's a starting point. This whole deep dive, it's been about recognizing a profound challenge, hasn't it? That tyranny of the immediate constantly tempts us. We mistake speed for depth, applause for real authenticity.
Yeah, we have to resist that temptation patiently and precisely.
Measuring what truly matters.
Yeah.
You called it a sacred art earlier, and I think that's right. It takes humility, patience, a reverence for just how complex people are and how long real change takes to root.
And when we do that, it feels like we restore dignity. Dignity to the slow, often hidden journey of formation.
Well said.
So as we finish, maybe here's a reflection question for you, our listener. What are you or your organization tempted to count right now simply because it's easy? And what crucial, perhaps harder things are you tempted to ignore? And thinking longer term, how will your leadership legacy be defined? By the size of the quick harvest? Or by the deep faithfulness of your tending the soil? Something to think about.